Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 17th Comic Art Collector Conversation. We've got some fresh blood in here this evening and some seasoned veterans. So welcome back, Rob and James, of course, and our new panelists today, our Sideshow Bob, and who is a natural-born comedian, if you didn't know that already, and Ed Harris as well, both longtime collectors. And I got to get their CAF galleries linked into the show description. I apologize for not having that in there yet, but I will try to do it actually while we're doing the show a little bit here. So we've got some varied topics this evening, so it should be a lot of fun. But we always do intros for people who've not been on the show before. So Bob, I'm going to let you just give us a brief description of how you got started in the hobby and anything else you'd like to tell us about yourself before we get started today.
Sure. It's My Little Pony. So that is the origin story. So I was looking for a piece of art for my daughter's bedroom, and she was mad into My Little Pony. And, so I went out and said, oh, wow, you can buy some art for this stuff. And I found a couple My Little Pony pieces and bought them. And then, at the time I had, I don't know, probably 300 slabs or something of CGC graded, mostly Batman, but a bunch of other stuff. And I think I had one of the awards for like the best Batman 300 to 400, graded sets, and close to the best of the 200 to 300. But then I found art and went, holy crap, this is so much better. And I went and bought a bunch more My Little Pony stuff and talked to my 6-year-old daughter and said, isn't this great? And she's like, huh? I don't understand. Is it Twilight Sparkle? And then next thing you know, I started selling my slabs off and started really going on a tear of acquisitions. I work in finance and I started kind of looking at the market. I kind of looked at it like a market. And I looked at some of the new books that were coming out and some of the stuff that, I kind of got back into reading again. And I started going to Comic-Con, not to sort of walk around and see, the dealer tables for comics, but actually looking at the art side of it. And it was a complete sea change for me. So since then so now my daughter's 13. And she doesn't like My Little Pony anymore, which is tragic. But, in the process though, I made a lot of friends and met a lot of people and started really working through a real evolution in what I do for collecting. And I sort of got out of speculating on books and art after getting burned a couple times and then really kind of started doing a full self-curation. And kind of evolving into I don't want to say a seasoned collector because I'm still a small fish in this pond, but the goal here is really for me to hit some high points in my collection and be content. And every year I put in my collecting goals on CGC that I'm going to be content this year, and every year I find that I'm not content. So that's it, it's but yeah, it still comes back to the ponies.
So were those the pony pages, were they published or did you get them?
Yeah. So the number one My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, right? MLPFIM for those guys out there. And not bronies, but like some of the artwork is brilliant. Andy Price, who turned out he grew up a couple blocks from me in Chicago. Does some tremendous work. And there's some really amazing talent that comes out of there. Seth Green, I think, said one time that you don't have to be a child to appreciate good children's entertainment. And I don't disagree with that. So now my daughter's got a bunch of Bruce Timms in her room and, she's got a Jason Fabok art, signed thing for her. But yeah, so now when we go to Artist Alley and New York Comic Con, it's a completely different show. But we stop by the pony people and say hi.
Does she appreciate that art, Rob? I mean,
yeah, she's still into it. I mean, she's not. I'm not putting Lobo in front of her. or Black Monday murders. But she ran through all of the Perez Teen Titans, all the way up through when they stopped doing collections. So she's definitely into it. The other one could care less, but anyway, yeah. So that's the origin. I just recently got the Punisher #1 cover that Klaus Janson did from 1987. That was my biggest buy so far. And I'll talk about that when I get into the topic, but that's kind of the origin story. It always goes back to the ponies.
Hey, that's fantastic. When I started collecting early on, I was looking for artwork for my kids too, because I wanted to get them involved in the hobby. I've got a Powerpuff Girl cover right above my monitor because the girls didn't want it in their room either. So I ended up with it. But I get that, and I've bought my fair share of pony artwork as well. I've got a 16 and 18-year-old daughter, so they were big into ponies. So I've tried. But likewise, they probably are more into Teen Titans and that sort of thing now than they ever were into ponies, unfortunately.
Yeah. So it's been a hell of a journey. I think I've sold off. I think I have probably half of My Little Pony #1, the interiors, and so I'm not trying to make a full book out of it, but if one of them pops up on eBay, I'll buy it without question. But
very cool. All right. Well, hey Ed, do you mind giving us your origin story as well before we get started?
In the beginning, no, it's in a book. It's like I try to think about when I started comic art purchasing, and that's different than when I received my first piece of comic art. So I was lucky enough to be able to go to San Diego. And because I used to live in a little city called Yuma, it's in the southwest corner of Arizona. And so my friend Tim, my friend Kevin, and I drove over like that day to San Diego, got in line, got a ticket, went inside, and I ended up with sketches by people like Klaus Janson, John Romita Sr., just random, people like, Eric Larson, Mark Bagley, just people would do me little sketches. Like Romita drew me a nice green goblin. I had those for years, and I didn't think anything of it. I put them away. I kept it. Bought comics, kept buying more comics. Went to college, got a job, and then, of course, my laundry finishes right now. My friend John and I went to a Phoenix Comic Con when it was still in Glendale, and Jim Mahfood was there, and he had just gotten off the Spectacular Spider-Man series. And so there's the first piece I ever purchased was by Mahfood, and it's pretty much a 2/3 page splash of Sandman all blinged out on a beach, and it's great. I mean, it hangs on my wall, and it's Mahfood for sure. But I've been just increasing and buying art ever since then. I would buy whatever I could get my hands on, especially if it was nostalgia based. So something I had read as a kid or something I wanted to have, or just it resonated with me, and that's why I would purchase things. And then I started saying, well, maybe I should put stuff on the walls, and so I started buying pieces that I would exclusively only want to put on a wall. And now I'm back into the investment side of it, buying things that resonate with me from a nostalgia point of view, things that I grew up reading, things that I've read now recently that are much older than I am. Like I've become a huge fan of Winsor McCay. So I own 3 pieces now.
Wow.
And it's not for everybody, but to see it up front and like it right in front of your face, it's one of those wow. And a few years ago, I made the good decision at the time, bad, like if you were thinking about it at the time, I pulled money out of my IRA and bought a Romita Sr. from Cool Lines that I traded a bunch of pieces and gave them cash. And we were, we were really haggling on that piece, but it hangs on my wall. I see it every day, and it's a fantastic thing. I don't know if anybody looked at my recent post of that, but it's been under glass, and I can't really get a great photo of it because it just doesn't do it justice. But that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I also work in finance, but more of the engineering side for a finance company. So
Very nice.
I also owned a My Little Pony sketch by Tony Fleece.
Yeah, if you got it before Straw Dogs, you know.
I did, but I also got rid of it before Straw Dogs because
Great.
I don't have any daughters that I'm aware of. I do have a 2-year-old son, and I do buy lots of his art for him. I don't know if he's really at that point where he's going to appreciate it, so I kind of keep it out of his reach so crayons, markers, and drool don't end up on it. But yeah, I've got Lionel Francis Yu, like where Scott Summers as Cyclops is holding a baby Cable. I've got an original Dennis the Menace page. Franco like posted something on his Instagram maybe a year ago, and it was just a fantastic Justice League rendition that he did of just this quirky Picasso-like illustration of the whole team. I bought it off of there, and just random things that are going into his room, and he just doesn't realize it's going to happen.
Hey, which McKay do you have? Did you get? Is it Rarebit or?
I don't have a Rarebit. I own a Little Sammy Sneeze page.
Oh, cool! Those are fun.
It is based on Heritage's description. There have been 6 at market for the last 25 years, and I had some extra cash laying around last year, and when it came up to the auction, I bought it. So I also own a political cartoon, and I own a McKay Jr. Impy page.
Cool. Yeah, I have a Rarebit here.
Oh, nice.
So what's really neat about him is the way that he actually drew the outlines first, and then he would draw the interior of the bodies as he sketched them out. So
the fine long detail is ridiculess. Like
it's so nuts.
Just the perspective on the panels and the attention to detail, and you can actually just, even if you didn't have any, like the Little Sammy Sneeze, there's not a lot of word bubbles for the most part. I mean, I think it's 6 panels or 8 panels, and it's just you can follow it. And you can you see what's happening in the story, and then Sammy's in timeout, and it's just a fun piece, and it hangs right outside my office, so I have to walk by it every day.
Yeah, I was in London for business, and I saw a Rarebit sandwich on the menu, and I ordered it expecting that I was going to start having hallucinations when I got to the hotel that night. But sadly, I didn't. I was like,
if you were in Amsterdam, you might have. But
what a letdown!
London,
yeah,
not.
Well, next time I'll travel with you, Bill.
This part wasn't planned, but I think we've got a finance trifecta with Rob too. I think he's in finance as well.
Yeah,
Rob,
I do accounting.
Any peculiarities with your collecting? I know you've got introduced before.
With any peculiarities with my collecting? Is that what you said?
But do you have a My Little Pony in your?
I do not. I mean, I've got
some flaming skull.
Yeah, I mean, I might have a few pieces with a flaming skull on them, very possibly. I mean, I have a very focused collection. I mean, I do have a few random pieces from like my wife enjoys a lot of art too, so like we'll often like collect fantasy art, and like she does like Dungeons and Dragons and everything. So we went out of our way to like find a really good Dungeons and Dragons piece off Heritage. And like I used to play Warhammer back in the day, so I've picked up a few Adrian Smith Warhammer paintings. Like just I tend to be really, really focused, and so like I know exactly from a comic book perspective, it's like I know exactly what I want, and I'm just like keeping my eye out for very specific pieces all the time and trying to find them. But then kind of the general purchases will be like my wife and I will keep an eye out for fantasy stuff or that sort of thing. For in the large part, also have. She really likes a Gotham by Midnight, which is like a comic book series by Ben Temple-Smith, and I can't remember the author of that one, but the cover was still on the cover to the first issue was still on Ben Temple-Smith's website after like 6 or 7 years, and so we just went ahead and bought that because it's like her favorite comic too. So got a few random things, but nothing. No My Little Pony. So, but
we can hook a brother up if you want.
What's that?
I can hook a brother up.
That's okay. I'll
No.
pass.
Now, corner that
Appreciate it
market,
though.
Bob. Corner that market.
What about a cosmic ghost pony?
Yeah, if we
You don't
see
know what you're missing until you see it.
get Katie Cook to put Cosmic Ghost Rider on Rainbow Dash, it'll be fantastic,
Is that fanfic, Bob?
dude. It's about to be if it isn't already.
What's interesting. So we'll jump into topics and everything, but one of the kind of the subtopics we talked in the green room was how your families get involved in art and we actually kind of addressed it. And all your guys' spouses or children, everything are involved in their art collection. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, very true. When one of the episodes of Dueling Dealers was over, Anthony didn't sell a Humberto Ramos, that sketch book cover of his it was like the little kid, which maybe was him, who was sketching in a drawing pad and had like a little Deadpool holding a phone, and they were using something as reference. And she came in and said, "Dad, I want it." And so I ended up having to, all right, I had to negotiate with Anthony in the green room after the episode of Dueling Dealers. And he tried to get me to pay full price, even though he had gone down on the price during the show. But that's Anthony for you. But yeah, so I involve my kids when we can. But that just shows you she went from My Little Pony to Humberto Ramos, and put a smile on her face. And I got a free portfolio out of that deal as well.
Did you get a shirt too?
He sent me a couple shirts when he first got them. But no shirt.
I'm not gonna lie, like those shirts are actually a really good quality shirt. Like, and mine actually fit me. It's just I felt like wearing,
He overspent on that first round of shirts that he bought. He didn't know how nice they really were. So I think when he did the second round, which I haven't gotten one of those, they were not as good as the first round. So
yeah, when I got mine, I was like, ooh, Anthony went all out.
What did I do with that? Oh, so I finally got my proof card from There you go, Billigan, from first appeared episode 13.
Trading cards.
Yeah.
That's
See,
awesome.
I've got on the back. I've got what the stats were after the first 25 episodes, and so now that I've got that, we've got like 20. I think there's 24 cards that we've got. No, 25. One for technically every episode. So I got to send those to the printer tomorrow.
I saw Marcus's comment in the chat. So with the cards, you get a sticker sheet with sticker pasties.
We should do that. I won't tell you, but there was a meme that was built very recently. No, we're not going to do that. I don't want to embarrass myself that much. I mean, Anthony can embarrass himself as often as he wants to on that show. But so anyway, enough of that. But it's true. It's good we worked that in there, James, as far as talking about family and everything too. But do you have a My Little Pony? You're the only one who hasn't fessed up or not.
No, man. So I'm not part of the crowd, but I will make it. I will make it happen. I will get Aranga to draw me a pony with a flaming skull and some Ghost Rider riding it.
You can get a Wolverine My Little Pony, and I'll get a Cosmic Ghost Rider My Little Pony.
So you get the Cosmic Ghost Rider My Little Pony because it's the classic Ghost Rider. So you get the horse as the pony.
Mine will be Wolverine just eviscerating that pony. I'm just kidding.
Katie Cook will probably hook you up with that. I probably have more My Little Pony artwork from Katie than anybody, because whenever I'd see her, she'd have a pile on her table. So I'd always buy like 2 or 3 when I'd walk by. I picked up a few other things too, but usually it was the My Little Pony because that was easy enough to give. So I got about 10 of those from her.
Aranga doesn't seem happy with your commission suggestion in chat.
Aww. I'll just have to pay him now.
So Katie actually took a picture of my wife and her now deceased grandfather, and a picture of their cabin in upstate New York, and she made it into a beautiful 8.5 by 11 color, almost like a photo of my wife when she was a little kid, holding her grandfather's hand, with their family dog. Again, it's good to be friendly with the pony people. And she put it together, and I gave it to my wife for her birthday a couple years ago. And I've never had as strong a reaction, because there's no picture like that that exists. And she spent a little time on it, and got the house just perfect, and the color of the roof just exact. It was a really meaningful moment for us to put together.
Awesome. That's a great idea for a gift.
Very happy with Katie for doing that. I think she did it as a favor, not as a before she gets flooded with that kind of stuff. But it was pretty awesome.
Katie.
Sorry?
Said Sideshow Bob sent me to you.
yeah, she'll be her house
scene recreation
with a some storm knocked a tree through her house. But anyway, but sorry. Just it was there's been a lot of great connections that have come out of this hobby. Friends that are artists, friends that are collectors. It's and Bill, I'll do that. Everyone's first time on your show. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for making this community what it is. It's really I can't. When you meet the guy behind the curtain, all I can do is just say thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure. I was happy being the guy behind the curtain for many years. So this is still, I appreciate that. For me, I'm a collector like everyone else. CAF was really meant to be, for me, it was just an extension of the hobby for myself too. When I built it, I mean, I made what I wanted for the hobby when I built it, and I kind of just let it evolve that way. And it's so it's very gratifying to have discovered that everybody needed those same things, and they found the site to work well for what they wanted out of the hobby too. Because I didn't solicit a lot of feedback early on. I just sort of did what I wanted and talked with a couple friends and just built the site what we felt was the right thing. And it's always great to hear that. So thank you, Bob.
Yeah, no, happy to.
All right. Sorry, just reading the chat a little bit more, but let's see. So, Bob, why don't we get you started? Because you actually, I have you to go first this evening.
Cool. Okay. Sorry if my head keeps on moving side to side. I played hockey an hour ago, and I got hit pretty hard in overtime. So I keep on moving my head back and forth, expecting a vertebrae to separate.
Did you win?
Yeah. And
it was worth it.
Well, then it was worth it.
It was worth it. Yeah. So, I'm just all banged up. So hence the Pinot as well. That's helping. Anyway, so I kind of went through and looked at episode 3, which was Dino talking about financial planning and how to approach purchases, financing, looking at your balance sheet, and he had his friend Kevin who wrote into him, and he kind of ran through that whole scenario. And honestly, I loved it. It was great from a financial planning aspect, from a from an accounting aspect, from a being fiscally responsible. It was beautiful. But a lot of what has happened in my collecting evolution, and I think I know this from a lot of other people, is that there is a plateau that you hit, and then you break through that plateau, and then you hit another plateau, and then sometimes you break through that plateau, and sometimes it's going from a $100 budget to a $500 budget. Sometimes it's going from cracking 1,000 to going to the 5,000 level, and with the market moving so rapidly, the plateaus are moving so quick, and it's a question of where do you want to play in this sandbox. So I kind of went back and sort of looked at Dino's, and it was tremendous, but it didn't prepare anyone mentally for what that level is, and I kind of wanted to sort of run through the mental aspect of it. What does it mean when you move from plateau to plateau or from bracket to bracket. So I was at Dan Paddock's house a number of years ago. He had a meetup, when he lived in Manhattan. And, I walked in there and I was the guy that was collecting Lock and Key and Why the Last Man and, and My Little Pony and, and a lot of Sean Murphy stuff when he first started, when he was doing The Wake and Tokyo Ghost and that sort of stuff. And they kind of all referred to me as like, the new guy who buys the modern stuff. And everyone there had pulled out these massive folios that had Iron, Tales of Suspense splashes and stuff that was just unreachable for me completely, at least in my career, in my income bracket, and honestly, in what I thought was available. And at one point, somebody put an iced tea on the table and then proceeded to look through the folio. And Dan, or it might not have been Dan, but somebody else walked up to him and goes, "You do realize there's about $1.5 million worth of paper-based, items on this table?" And I was just like, hoping that iced tea didn't fall over onto, the first appearance of Ant-Man and, this, amazing Thor, splat, twice up splash and all these things that just were like completely out of my game.
Murder.
Yeah, it was insane. And Dan was kind enough to keep on inviting me. And I kept on going to those. And he's a friend and we talk. But when I started sort of reaching a plateau and moving into the next plateau, it was a moment, and I kind of wanted to talk about that with the other people in the panel about, where did you kind of start at? And then when did you decide to sort of take it up? Was it the market that forced you to do it? Was the things that you sort of honed in on your collecting desire started to appear more out of reach if you didn't step up your game? Did you make a lot of money in art and, suddenly you had that sort of those paper profits that people talk about who bought in the 80s, or bought in the 70s and they've got this amazing stock that they can just sell one piece and, pay for their year of expenses. I kind of wanted to ask, Rob and Ed, and James for that matter, what kind of happened with you guys? When you're dropping on Winsor McKay's, and Rob, I know you're super focused, but it still takes a lot of firepower to get, and we know that, but it takes firepower to get what you're looking for.
Yeah, no, I think the focus is interesting is because it does mean that there's when I want very specific pieces, I have to be ready to pay kind of whatever the price tag is for those very specific pieces. And I think I'm a little weird in that, I haven't been collecting for too terribly long. I think 2.5 years. It feels like 6 months, but I think it's 2.5 years now. But the first piece I bought was $1,600, and it was way overpriced. It was something I really liked, and so I don't think most people come into the hobby spending that much money on one piece. And so I think I kind of set the bar pretty high for myself in terms of what I thought the stuff was going to cost. And I think it hasn't helped my wallet, but it's helped me with having a focused collection. It's helped me get the things that I want because I find that I generally value what I want more than other people do. And so obviously that puts you at an advantage when you're going after that stuff. And I mean, there's both a personal value to it and a fair market value to it. And I always know I'm paying more than fair market value, but I'm okay with that because of how focused I am and kind of the personal value that I apply to it. But in terms of ratcheting up, we were talking about those different plateaus, I think you're very familiar probably with the first purchase I made that ratcheted up my collection. So Bob,
full disclosure, right?
Yeah. So if y'all know my collection again, it's very Cosmic Ghost Rider focused, and Bob was the original purchaser of the Cosmic Ghost Rider #1 cover, and so he and I talked for months and months trying to figure that deal out. I eventually we came to a price, and I sold my Paper Magic collection to fund that and purchased that. And that was a big step up in terms of how much I paid for a piece. But if you know the character at all, that's pretty, that and the first appearance page are the only the two most significant pieces by a mile. And so it was I already had the first appearance page. And it was like, no question that cover was like something I really wanted. So I paid up for it. Kind of the next,
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I got to ask you if the topic is associated with plateaus, and not to put any fear into you, but considering you've cornered the market almost on a singular character, isn't that inherently going to hit a plateau with that? Because what else would be out there? So, thought about that, or what are your feelings?
What scares me the most is when I find something else to collect, and I hope I'm not as focused on whatever I find, because it's very expensive to be this focused, and so I'm sort of hoping that I feel like I've completed my collection on some level, and I can make more fun. Not that these purchases aren't fun, but I can just sort of more like the fantasy art, where it's like, I just keep an eye on what comes up, rather than like be very like always hunting for something very specific. But so I'm terrified I'm going to find something else. But I mean, it is, when you corner the market like that, it is a little scary in terms of, I mean, it's very, very, very hard now to find the specific pieces that I want. And I don't know if I call it scary. It's like an interesting challenge, I think. And I mean, part of it is just being happy with what I've got. Like, I mean, one of my big, part of it's just being like happy with what I have. Like some of the, it can be difficult to add pieces, but I've already got a fantastic collection. So, but I guess one last, apologies, I know I'm talking for a while, but one last thing is just, the other big plateau I think I hit was when I bought my first complete issue. I got a complete Thanos issue from the Donny Cates Jeff Shaw run, which is, if you're into modern art, like that's a pretty popular book. And I love that series. I think it's fantastic. But one thing that I realized was, like, if you make a bunch of small purchases, they eventually add up to one big purchase. So why not, if you got the discipline to do it, like just save up. I don't. Post-purchase, I'm questioning whether I have the discipline to do it, but pre-purchase, it's like if you like plan out well enough, making one big purchase, I think, is often like worth it to like hit that new plateau, because at a certain point you realize, wow, I've got so much art. I'd rather have so many amazing pieces versus hundreds of okay pieces.
I don't think discipline and OA actually go together.
They don't.
They're incompatible.
It's an oxymoron.
What is this discipline thing you speak of?
Yeah, can I counterpoint on that one? Because one of the best things that I did was I had an undisciplined collection. I had a lot of stuff that was random, and that gave me trade bait. It gave me a foot in the market instead of, as the market went up, the stuff I had went up. And if it wasn't for a lot of the things that I had bought and mistakes that I made, and trust me, this whole hobby is littered with mistakes. Peter Panzerfaust, if anyone's paying attention. But thanks, Ed. Appreciate that. So if you don't make those mistakes and you sort of sit on the sidelines waiting to make that big move, you can miss out on the market moving with you. It's like picking one single stock versus picking an ETF, and not being in an ETF when the market goes up. I don't know. So I like the idea of having a real singular focus in making a big buy and being there. But I think you miss out on the evolution of this collection, this niche of collecting, if you don't make some mistakes and you don't, the discipline approach is fine, but it's not fun. I love making mistakes. I've got a veritable graveyard of mistakes that, would be terrifying to walk through.
And you call them mistakes. I call them grails. You mean one of them lock and keys?
Yeah. So, but let me. Sorry, Ed. I'd opened the door for you, and then I shut it. Let me keep running through here, though. So, one of the things that, again, this whole idea of plateauing and moving around, the marketplace, and buying things that, you're no longer buying a $500 piece, you're buying $1,000 piece, or you're buying a Now you're not buying $1,000 piece, you're buying a $10,000 piece. And then you start getting into these other conversations where you're talking about, oh, that guy just turned me down for 75 grand, oh well, maybe I'll make a better offer in a month, let's see if he's real or not. And it's kind of, and again, I'm sort of only venturing into that part of the market on a very focused basis. Like I just got, I did this deal for the entire issue of Punisher #1 that Klaus Janson had done in '87. It was actually one of the comics that I sold to pay for a limo to prom. So I sold my Punisher miniseries, my Punisher #1, and my Wolverine miniseries that I bought off the shelf, and I sold them back to a comic book shop in order to get enough money to pay for my prom date to go to ride in a limo. And ever since then, I was like, damn, I wish I had those comic books back. And when I got the opportunity to buy the complete issue of Punisher #1, I jumped at it, but I couldn't afford it. That was the problem. So I broke the book up, which is, I think, part of the thing that people, all these talks about having, having complete issues. Sometimes, you don't want the complete issue. And there's a lot of happy collectors right now that have a page from Punisher #1 right now. I kept the cover and I kept the splash, but the rest of it's all been broken up. But that was the technique that I used to move up a notch, to move up a level, as it were. And during that process, though, I had to do a lot of introspection, a lot of looking into what it was that I had, what cost basis I had, and what my collection was, what I paid for it, what the market was going to bear. Looking at some of the stuff that I had that was commodities versus permaholds. Kind of going through the Marie Kondo thing with does it bring me joy? And what could I sell and give up? So, and it's funny, as I've been watching this Collector's Corner, every single one of those topics has been brought up, in a very specialized form. But they all come into play when you're sort of moving, moving brackets. The first big moment I ever had was Sean Murphy sold me his Detective 27 copy, or the art for it, and it was a 20 grand cash payment, and we sat there and put the cash on the table and dropped the hundreds down and counted them out. It was surreal. I felt like a drug dealer, like I've never had that much cash in my hand, and it's, but that was one of those plateaus where, suddenly a $20,000 sale or purchase wasn't going to kill me. And part of it was, and again, Rob, this goes back to what I was saying before, if it wasn't for a bunch of other like Batman pieces that I had bought, and been lucky enough to buy into the market at the time, I wouldn't have had those sort of commodity holdings to make that deal possible. Anyway, so I prattled on a little bit, but
let's open the door for Ed on that one again. See what plateaus he's hit.
I should unmute before I laugh. Like I think in the green room, I was talking about how, I started out. I talked about how I bought a Mahfood. It was my first purchased piece. I think it was 2002 or 2003. I want to say 2002. And I think I paid $70 for that piece of art. And then maybe 3 or 4 years later, I bought an original Hellboy page and I paid $800 for it. And I had a little mini panic attack after that because I wasn't making a lot of money at the time. At $800, I was like, I just paid $800 for a piece of paper. I would kill to pay $800 for a piece of paper these days. It's like paper is expensive. I sold 103 different pieces at a Comic Link auction last fall, or over a couple of auctions, to pay for that Winsor McKay that I bought. It was just like original pages, sketches, random things that artists had left on their table at San Diego Comic-Con that I was like, well, they don't want it, I do. It's coming home. And then it went out, and other people now have it in their collections, and they appreciated it more than it was sitting in my portfolio. And that's a problem I have, is that I like I said, I looked at things that I grew up reading, and I would just buy whatever I could. And like I had, built up different rapport with different artists, and I would buy their work because, one, I feel like I have a connection with an artist at that point. Like, I love Norm Rapman. That man, it like does some phenomenal inking, and I just don't see a lot of I just don't see a lot of people like really understanding like how long he's been in the industry and all the work that he's done. He's done some great stuff, and I own probably like 40 pieces of his, and now I only own 2. And it's not because I don't love Norm. It's just I use that to build my pyramid, like that. I was like, planting that foundation, just like you were saying, Bob. And like San Diego Comic-Con, I think the last legitimate one where you could attend in person, I took a bunch of money out of my IRA, and like I went over to I was determined that I was going to buy a Bill Sienkiewicz piece, and I bought 2, and I just went up to his broker, and I was like, how much are these? And they're like, this much. And I said, how much for cash? And they go, well, I don't know. Like, what about XYZ? And I said, cool. And I just reach in my pocket, and wow. I'm like and we're up on like the top of the, and we're just like hundreds. And I was
the sound is thwack.
Oh, thwack.
Thwack.
No, that's
you have to get the
I was gonna say that's
to go across the table. It's like the snick of
the snick of cash.
Of the cash dealing.
And the guy was like,
no.
The guy was like, put that away until we go upstairs. He didn't want to get.
That was Sal.
No, it was another. It wasn't like Sal had to come over and agree to my deal, but because normally I dealt with Sal, but I didn't see him, and then they had to go find him because they're like, this guy's got cash, and I was like, we just having unreasonably
make it rain
financial potentially bad decision. But I bought 2 Sienkiewicz's. I got like an Immortal Hulk cover that's just stupid awesome, and then I bought a page from the Daredevil End of Days, and it's not even actually a page. It's a panel in a page, but it's I don't think
is that the start of fractional ownership,
right? Like I don't even know how the rest of the page. Like I had to go and find it in the book. I was like, I know I've seen this before, and it's just the Kingpin looking out over the city, and it's mostly like we're checking out like how much he's worked out because it's mostly tush, and then just like his apartment, like looking over the city, and it's so many different layers of shellac and like color and paint and marker. It's just like Bill is out of like his work has just like the market prices has shot up exponentially in talent. Like you can see what like he is a true artist. But yeah, I had like a conversation with Khalil, and we talked about I have a lot of pieces that do sit in portfolios, and I have stories and rationalizations on why I bought them and why I still have them. Whether it's the artist, whether it's the storyline, whether it resonated with me, whether I thought it might be a good investment. Because like Bob said, I've made plenty of bad investments. But I got rid of most of those already. It's just, I at some point I will probably trade away some more of those to get a better piece, or a piece that resonates with me more. It's just I have to come to grips with the fact that if I let some of these pieces go, I will never have another opportunity at them, because I was lucky to get them in the first place, and by offering them up to the public, I kind of have to, do my whole like Frozen, like let it go, like montage in my head.
Yeah, but exploding market minimizes a lot of stupid decisions. So
It does. Yeah. It's hard to find a bad trader when the market's going up.
yeah.
Yeah, I also worry that I'll put it out there and then it won't realize what I hope that it will realize. So, doing direct sales, I've had some great successes there. I've had other people call me out and tell me that I'm high for some of the prices that I want. And there might be one or two where I've asked for a little bit of a premium, but I try to price my things very fairly. And I hate these low, I'm a low baller. Like I'm not gonna lie, like dueling dealers this past Wednesday, like Anthony was trying to make that last second win. And I was like, you don't want those 3 Captain America pages. You only need $1,400 to win. I know you want $7,000 for it, but I'll give you $1,400.
Yeah, that was low balling for sure.
Yeah, like that's really low ball. And I have never been ignored that much except in like high school by women. So I understand, but like I get people like I put something out there and it's a certain price and these people come at me and they're like, I'll give you like literally 10% of what you're looking for. I'm like, what? And I graciously write back, thank you for your time, but I'm not interested in just walking away from the art for nothing. People tell me that I price things too low sometimes, and so it kind of balances out. But I just at some point I will have to narrow down my pieces and I will trade up. I would love to have a Kirby Fantastic Four. Like that would make me happy. I would love a Ditko Speedball. That would be so exciting. But they've got to become available. And I kicked myself in the butt for not picking up some pieces that I could have had back when they were only a couple $100. But I didn't have a couple $100, at least I perceptually didn't, to spend on that. So the next plateau for me will definitely involve me parting ways with some art to come up on a better piece.
Sure.
And that was actually one of the last parts of this little topic for me was how do you know that you're making the right call, right? When you say I'm gonna go and buy something that's going to cost, that's going to be 10% of my total comic collection's art worth, it's not one of those silly scenarios that people talk about where they say, if you sold everything for one piece, what would you get? I'm not, because no one ever does that. But the scenarios where you go, okay, I'm going to literally take 10% of the value of this collection, liquidate it or sell it or start trading it or use it for trade credit or get an advance or whatever it takes. How do you know that you're making the right call? And luckily we all have that escape hatch that says you buy what you love.
I think it was like buying a car. Like you could be getting a terrible, terrible deal on a car, but if you're happy with the deal that you're getting and you're getting a vehicle that you want, you accept the terms of that purchase. Like it's just like art. Like there's been some great art that like I've purchased and I'm sure that I've paid way too much, but I love that art. I see it every day. Yeah. So right now I don't have that regret factor. And then there are others where I've purchased and I was like, why did you do
I just
that?
think of the scene from The Matrix, ignorance is bliss. So if I'm happy, it's all good.
There is no spoon.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Gene still says in his little CGC thing, Gene, value wasn't cost is what you pay, value is what you get. And you have to separate those two things. They're not the same. For instance, behind me, what over there? Those 4 across the board there, that's the Millennium. That's the Jerry Bingham. Oh dear God. It's the Jerry Bingham, Millennium 4 spread of Captain Atom, Suicide Squad, Detective, and Spectre. Right. I got those for $7,000. The guy put them on eBay and then pulled them off because everyone just wanted the Detective one and he wanted to sell them intact. And I wrote to him and said, "That's my favorite issue." Or that was my first connected cover and my first comic event in 1987. And I said, I'd pay you double, like it doesn't matter. And to me, the value was immense. And what I paid was not, and those are the things that make it up on the wall. And as I continue to evolve as a collector, I started moving towards more towards things that are pairable, things that I can put two things together. And I started really getting away from stuff that sits inside a portfolio in my closet. I went through and created a hit list which is funny. I don't have any speedball on that hit list, Ed. So don't worry.
Yeah. Stay away from that, man.
I am looking for a Flaming Carrot Comics cover though.
Oh, I don't blame you. That Bob Burton stuff is awesome.
Yeah.
I got a sketch by him, but that's about as close as I've come.
I have zero speedball interest. But that's what's so great about this hobby is that, you and I are both going after 1908 Windsor McKays. But 1985 or 1990, indie comics, it's a different game for everybody.
Yeah, and like you'd mentioned about having a full issue. Like there we go, that thing. It's a Books of Magic cover, and I bought it maybe 5-6 years ago easily, and then all the pages from the interior came up for auction last fall. I was like, and I just happened to see it the day the auction was happening. I wasn't looking for it. It's a nice, Kaluta Books of Magic cover, just like this one right here. And Books of Magic was like my first foray into non-superhero, non-Marvel comics. And I just kind of I just fell into it. I love the story. And I own lots and lots of Peter Grosz pages from it. But I paid a stupid amount of money. Books of Magic, some people like it, some people don't. All of a sudden, it went from $400 for the whole thing, and the next it bumped up significantly from there. And I was like, at this point, I'm buying it. I was like, you're not getting away with it. After I hit a certain plateau, I was like, at this point, I'm all in. So I could have lost my shirt, and that luckily I didn't. But I now own literally an entire issue, except for a back cover, which is probably an advertisement. And I have no idea how to display it because that's a lot of art.
Don't lose your shirt. Everyone likes your shirt.
Well, thank you. It's also no one wants to see what's underneath it. It goes back to the thing at the high school with the girls. It's totally
they're Anthony pasties. We get it.
They're not on here. Don't worry.
You got some art, Bill?
Anthony's abs back when he was younger were fantastic. He had the washboard.
Yeah, he's pretty proud of those. Clearly.
How about we take your word on that?
Yeah, no! If you watch,
that's off topic. Ed. Anthony's abs are off topic. Yeah, we got to bring back to the art. We got things to show.
Yes.
So, but yeah, let's move on to our next topic away from plateaus and Anthony's abs.
Done.
You have it. But great first topic, Bob. And it's something that, honestly, that as a topic, you could after watching the conversation in the chat, clearly that's a topic that we could actually have a whole show dedicated to it, because there were people commenting on the negative reasons why not to tap into your IRA, and and then other questions about pricing and valuing, and Bob, you can get a question about would you sell those 4 covers behind you for your next plateau?
No.
So, yeah. Well, there you go. See, but as a topic, this would be something. You could see it. There's topics like this one that we could talk about for 2 hours and still not be done with it. So
no, it's funny. There was so I've got a pretty big Don Newton collection, and I called up Felix one time because this guy was starting to sell through an estate sale or something. There was every 2 days there was another Don Newton page that was being sold by some eBay guy in Arizona, and I called up Felix for advice. Felix is kind of a lot of people's therapist, he's like, well, ask yourself what happens if someone else buys these, and I'm like, well, dude, I gotta go on my credit card and buy these with my credit card. I have to wait for my bonus to really pay it down. And he's like, but ask yourself, what is going to happen if someone else buys these? I'm like, I'll be devastated. He's like, well, then pull the trigger, man. and you know, I didn't pull out of my IRA. I'm not as ballsy as Ed is, but I did, like, you know, hit a limit on my credit card, and you know, I paid it off like within 2 months. But it was that was one of those like terrifying moments of you know, wow, I'm getting a little overextended here, and this is not cool. So, but you know, it all worked out in the end. I got, you know, half of Detective 526. Baruchi's got the other half, so we're just gonna see which one of us dies first. So,
like it.
but yeah, so but yeah, it's you know, those are one of those things where, you know, some people will clutch their pearls and go, oh my God, you can't do that. And other people say, if I don't do it now, I'm going to regret it for a very long time. And it just, you know, that's why it's an interesting hobby.
Agreed. Well, thank you, Bob. That was good. And I'm sure we will continue this in a different way, because there's, like I said, I think there's a lot to talk about here. We're gonna show off some artwork before we move on to our second topic. And Rob, you get to do the honors as far as showing the first two pieces here. So let me get your first artwork on the screen.
So I'm a huge fan, obviously, of Jeff Shaw and the work that he's done. So Khalil posted this one recently. I thought this one was a really great one to highlight. It's just a good example of Shaw's work. This is from his Guardians of the Galaxy run, which was after his Thanos run by a year or so, and just thought this was a great image, really good half splash page. Wanted to share from Khalil's collection.
That is a beauty, yeah. And Khalil always posts wonderful artwork. I've featured a few of his things in our CAF updates in the past.
Yeah, I think Shaw's really great for his rendering capabilities. Yeah, it's kind of obviously you have a bunch of different types of artists, but Shaw tends to go for very, if I had to pick somebody who was inspired by, like, it feels very Jim Lee-esque to me, like very highly detailed rendering, like somewhat more realistic kind of look to it. But again, just thought this was fantastic. You got kind of the machines that are on the left side, and then Star Fox and Thanos here.
Is a beauty. And your second piece.
And I thought this would be fun to highlight because the owner is on this call.
It's a tremendous pick.
I just thought this was one that when it was at auction, it really stood out to me. I thought it was really, really neat. I thought it was really fun when I saw it show up in Bob's collection. It's just the humor and the artistry on this one, I think, is really fantastic. Like, particularly the humor really stood out to me, and really leveraging the art for kind of the gag on the cover. It's by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I thought this was phenomenal. Again, was really excited to see it show up in Bob's collection. Bob, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to say about this one.
Yeah, you know, it's so I went through. Let me see. Let me back up. So during COVID, there was what was it? There were a lot of auction. A lot of artists were putting a lot of art up for to benefit the NAACP and for the Legal Defense Fund, and the during the Black Lives Matter marches and everything, and Scott Snyder put his one page that he said it was framed up on his wall from Dark Knight's Metal, which was the great Capula sort of when they unleash Plastic Man from his egg, right? And it's like full blown like Spawn type. What would happen if Plastic Man exploded into, you know, a full on creative onslaught, like the ball from Phantasm. So I had that, and I've been trying to pair up my art with other pieces. And I went back and started looking through some of the old Plastic Man stuff to see if there was some good Plastic Man art. And honestly, I went through every single cover that was out there, and this one was phenomenal. And I put it in my hit list, and I let it sit there. And when I kind of went back to when this auction was rolling through, I kind of wasn't really looking for it, and then I saw it, and it's brilliant. It's got the, when people talk about Fantastic Four and they say, what's a good Fantastic Four cover, right? It's got Clobberin' Time, it's got the, Flame On, it's got stretchy Mr. Fantastic, and it's got the Invisible Girl in some form of distress and invisibility. And the best Plastic Man covers have him doing his thing, when he disguises himself and shames and or shapeshifts and does this. And of all of the covers from the 1979 or 76 to 81, maybe, I think was when this run was. This is the best cover. I was ecstatic to see it come on to come on the market. And even when you guys were doing the recap, the guys were talking about it, Berkey, and like, strong number for the Plastic Man cover. Like, hell's yeah, because it's the so yeah, I was very happy to pay for it.
Nice. Well, big congrats adding it to your collection.
Yeah, sorry for the long story, but I really have gotten into that whole pairing aspect of putting stuff together.
No, that's a beauty.
It's funny that you actually picked up a Plastic Man, because I recently also picked up a Plastic Man. But mine's from like '68, and it's a Jack Sparling.
Yours is better.
I don't. Better is subjective. Like mine's
This is some trash.
Mine's a
talk
panel
right here.
page. Yours is Garcia
I was
Lopez.
going to say
cover.
Plastic Man rivalry going on here.
So
And Rob, you're
I'll
stuck
meet you in the
middle.
parking lot after
I know.
school, and we can
Try to get out.
Yeah, it was a stretch goal.
Oh, nice.
But
You're cut off, Bob. Put the bottle down.
Dad jokes need to end.
Oh boy! All right. Well, Ed, you get to take us on to our second topic tonight.
All right. So my topic was about the different forms of art that's available out there. I started off so you've got like pencils, you've got pencils and inks, you've got blue line over ink or ink over blue line. But then there are a lot of these new digital proofs because more and more artists are they're working exclusively digitally. Like Mitch Gerard's is a great example. Essential Sequential just put out some original artist proofs of Mitch's work this past week or the week before that, and it's on a nice paper. It's got great color stock. There are lots of options like sketches or remarks or signatures, and they're guaranteed to print only just one. And I'm more of a traditionalist, and I like traditional art, and different types of traditional art sing to me more than others. Like I have original just pencils from Mike Waringo, because Carl Kiesel did his inks all digitally over, Mike's work. So I still have original pencils. I have ink over blue line. But what is everybody's perspective on like what you would rather get over others and why?
So I mean, my perspective on it is like, of course, like if you get like, I think it's fascinating to be able to see like you said, just pencils. That can be really cool. Like seeing like Jack Kirby's pencils by themselves is kind of rare and really fascinating to see, and really shows you a whole new aspect to the artist, especially if the page was inked by Vince Galetta or something like that. Like the pencils are just, you lose a lot sometimes in the inking. But but obviously ink pages can be fantastic too. There's all sorts of traditional media, but I think you just have to kind of like, if it's only digital, if it's a monoprint, you kind of have to, it is what it is, I guess. And as long as the person buying it like knows what it is, like maybe there isn't going to be pencils that exist. Maybe there isn't going to be inks that exist. And so it's to some extent, like I kind of view it almost like moving towards art and more into the realm of like comic book collecting, where it's like you buy this rare artifact that maybe it isn't the art itself, and maybe it appeals more to say a comic book collector market than like an art collector market or something along those lines, if that makes sense. And I think there's a lot of overlap. Like I think a lot of my collecting sensibilities are influenced by comic book collecting sensibilities. So that's where it's unfortunate if you want like the traditional art, and I think there's like it's a different market, but I think it just has significant overlap, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that the like digital proofs. Sorry, Bob, I didn't mean to interject over you. I feel like digital proofs might lean themselves more towards NFTs. Like if you are a digital art creator, like a lot of today's professional comic artists are, that an NFT might be, like how does that work if maybe you decide to take your original digital, make it into an NFT, and then you do have an artist's proof? Like which one is actually, like, what's the intrinsic value of either format?
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting, because I do think like the real significance is it an actual one of one. I generally think NFT is better at doing that than a monoprint is, because like I've seen people who like make copies of their own art before. I remember I reached out to somebody on CAF and was like, oh, a piece, and I was like, hey, is it still available? He's like, no, but I'll sell you a print of it. And I was like, I don't want a print of it was a piece that has a that's actually traditional, but he copied it. And I was like, that's kind of scary to me, because that means there's something now out there floating out on the market that's essentially a fake. Whereas with an NFT, you've got the ledger and everything that kind of supports its existence, and there's no question about, is it a one of one? Now you could have an unscrupulous party make a fake NFT, quote unquote, somebody other than the artist make it, but that it's somebody other than the artist who made it, and that should mean it's not worth as much, and you don't want to buy that. So I think the market will monoprints will get kind of phased out for NFTs. Maybe they'll do like you buy an NFT and you get a monoprint at the same time too, but I don't know. I think like some of the Adam Kubert stuff's interesting too. He'll do like remarks and stuff on the mono prints, and I think they're really like great remarks that he'll do as well. But again, I think as long as you know what you're buying and you're comfortable with what you're buying, it sort of kind of is what it is.
Right, and I have digital only art, but I have a personal connection to both artists, the inker who did the ink and obviously the pencilist. And I wanted to support their work. It was a DC published, piece of art, and like I really enjoyed the piece, and it's only digitally available. So for me, I mean, and they can still turn that into an NFT. I was curious. And now over to you, Bob.
Well, no, I was going to say we're incredibly spoiled. So the fact that we have access to one of ones is ridiculous. We're so spoiled. So, I mean, you go back to the 1700s and, some of the early castings of, bronzes that are out there, they're in editions of 30s and 40s. You look at, some of the bear, who's an animalier out of France. He did, 20 editions of some of the lions that he did and panthers. You go into like Andy Warhol and Banksy, they're doing editions of 40 and, editions of 150. The girl with balloon, the Banksy that's out there, if you get the edition of 150, it's trading for $145,000 if you can even get your hands on one, So, and these are screen prints, they're just, like some of the Warhol, like some of the shitty ones. Oh, sorry, Bill, am I allowed to swear on this? I don't remember.
Not anymore.
Okay. So,
You're never coming back on, Bob.
But if there's like a Mao, like one of the nasty like Mao ones, not like the flowers or the Campbell soups or the
well, it's just like Max in the same thread.
Yeah.
Like things that were made by Warhol at the factory, you don't necessarily know if it was actually a Warhol.
Sure.
What I think is wild too is like I don't understand how this stuff is like in the market, because like it's like a huge IP. It's Marvel. if you look at a lot of other things, like whether like especially like Japanese art, like manga or things like that, or video game art, it's like a lot of companies just keep that stuff and it never goes anywhere. So, which I guess was, I mean, maybe you could argue that that's what was going on in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, et cetera, before the artists got their art back. And it's fantastic that the artists can make money off of it. But it's just like, particularly like key pieces for Marvel, it's like a lot of that stuff is, it's their history. It's kind of the blood of their IP, but we're allowed to go out and buy that. And that just seems bizarre to me on some level, kind of to Bob's point.
And I would add, my understanding, and I could be wrong, we should have a rep on here, correcting us or not, but I do think that, as the artist can only sell, the original, or if it's digital, they can sell the monoprint, a one of one. So they are allowed by the publisher to sell one thing, and that's why they don't make multiple prints or take 40 of them, and so that's why the digital people are limited on doing a monoprint or creating an NFT and potentially handing you a monoprint as well, I guess, at the end of the day. But that's kind of part of the sticky situation there, but that's why you don't see multiple editions, or they can't, because they literally can't print more than one. That's your understanding, James.
For monoprints, I'll just kind of echo what Rob said. I like what Adam Kubert did the most out of any monoprint that I've seen, in that he created a very nice remark on the actual monoprint. He priced the monoprints significantly less than he does his original art. And he did it so that people who couldn't afford his original art were able to actually buy a piece from him. And it still had that, uniqueness of being touched by the artist with the character associated with it. Now, apparently he took like a half a year to do it, but that's just artist prerogative, I guess. But if artists did that with monoprints, personalize it from unique nature, price it accordingly for a larger audience, man, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I've already contacted Jason about one of those Mitch Garrett's Miracle Man pieces. I think they're fantastic. The fact that it was done digitally is fine. If he's doing a one of one, again, yay. If he was doing one of 40, I'd still buy one of them. They're fantastic. Art,
they are phenomenal. Like the paper, the print, like the concept, everything is phenomenal. Like, and Mitch is local here to Phoenix, so I've met and had conversations with him, and it's like to see him. He doesn't do a lot of traditional art any longer.
Yeah.
So just almost all of his work is digital because it allows him the freedom to work so creatively in ways that he can't do in a traditional method. And to see that in a monoprint is fantastic. I just think about it and I'm like, is it still just a print? And what happens to the original art? Does it get NFT? And like I looked at those really hard. Like there was a couple I was like, and then I just had to like,
there's a great NFT story that this guy took a picture of Emily Ratajkowski or whatever, and he took a tweet of it and then he NFT'd the tweet and he sold it for like 15 grand. So she then went and printed the tweet, and it's a picture of her, and she put the tweet and she blew it up to wall size. And then she took a picture next to it, and then she NFT'd that and sold it for like 25 grand. And it's just, the whole thing is so stupid. And I get it. I don't want to go. I love the idea of Ethereum and how it actually captures in the blockchain an ability to pay an artist for future royalties somewhere down the line. I'm sure Neil Adams is killing himself right now that he didn't think of that first. But you've obviously, what I'm talking about.
You're just making my evening today. I haven't laughed this hard in a long time.
So, but like the rest of it, and I love that. I'd love to see some of these guys get royalties, through the blockchain. I think it's a great aspect of Ethereum and how that's going to tie into the NFTs. And that's why all those NFTs sell with Ethereum, is so that they can attach the contract into the blockchain, because Bitcoin doesn't do that. But if some of these digital artists can put stuff out there and get paid for it, God love them. Let them have at it. And if Mitch will put something out there that I can put on my wall, even better. So Anyway, I'm done.
I don't have anything to truly add other than I wish that there was a standard when pencils are blue lined on a and then are inked traditionally, because so often you can't tell that it's been done. So unless you know the history of that book or the creators that were responsible for it, that you've seen people get burned because they think there's original pencils on the piece and then there isn't.
Yeah.
And I don't really, I can't think of any good way to fix that problem, but it's unfortunate that that's out on the market, because it's confusing, and in some cases collectors value that work a little less than without the original pencils on it. So that's one thing that I'm disappointed about when I see it. It's happened on Dueling Dealers a couple times where Anthony had a piece, he didn't know it was blue lined and then inked. I think Mike had one too, and both didn't know it. They were sold to them without any disclosure from the collector, or that they probably got it in trade from or bought it directly from. And so if it's happening to them, it's happening to a lot of us, and that's the biggest disappointment that I have as far as this topic goes.
Yeah.
I think that I postulated like years ago that it would be nice if there was a ledger for traditional art, that maybe with traditional art, either on the back of the page, like some kind of handwritten in pencil or something, like who owned it at what point, what did they pay for it. It doesn't necessarily come into the the future purchasing, but it gives you like at least some kind of story to go with the art. Like,
congratulations, it's an NFT.
I was
gonna
just saying that's what you're going to
blockchain.
get when you have an NFT is
right, exactly. But I'm just saying for traditional art, it would be nice if there was something equivalent, like you could, or like artists had some kind of like impression stamp that they could put on a hologram or something. I know this is.
But they would put it on the front in the art and sign it really big, and then
I mean, it's interesting because there's a lot of different ways that kind of exists. Because if you have like a penciler and an inker and they both sign it, then you kind of know that like it was probably penciled, it was probably inked. Like really, the where it gets fuzzy is there's just this stuff's been around for so long. There's so many different processes. Like these are like artists they have lots of different creative methods, and there's no standardization to it. I mean, it would be nice for collectors, obviously, if there's standardization, but that's probably not like a meaningful expectation like for the artists themselves. I just think as this conversation was going on too, I was like, well, I was trying to think is like, why do like so many people have issues with monoprints, or like, why is that it can be a controversial topic. And it kind of occurred to me, I think part of it is that there is no standardized like method for it or market for it. And so it's kind of like there's only a random like kind of smattering of like monoprints out there. So it's really tough to say like, well, what are these worth, or what are these really in the market? Because you think about comic books, like comic books are all just printed pieces of paper, but people value those extraordinarily highly. Like, how is that different? I mean, obviously there's some obvious differences, but it's not that different from like a printed image. But the reason why is because comic books are like super standardized in terms of like what our expectations around them are, what the market is for them. The fact that there are more than one copy of each of them actually creates more of a market, gets people more interested in it. Whereas with the monoprints, I think it's tougher to equate it to any other market, because even with like original art, you can equate it to the fine art market or other art markets. Where did somebody put pencil to paper or paintbrush to easel, etc.? Anyways, that was just random thoughts that occurred to me, like listening to some of this conversation.
Yeah, we always thought there was a risk.
Sorry, James. Worry about anything digital. No, I was gonna say I just collect '90s marble dregs, so I don't have to worry about anything digital at this point until I get plateaued out of it, and then it might be an issue.
Then you'll have to buy those Kuber monoprints.
Hey, that's a good point.
Yeah, I just think that it'd be fun to be able to look at the history of traditional media art.
We're all going to get stuck in that soon, because it's like, oh, this is a blue. So I bought an X-Men page that Brett Booth had done, that Norm Rapmund had inked. Love Norm's stuff on Brett particularly. And he came back and said, or somebody came back to me. I bought a pencil only, and they said, "Oh, there was no ink on it," or no, it was the inked version. And there was no pencils. They're like, "Oh, the pencils were done digitally." I'm like, or the pencils were done and they were inked over, and then the pencils were destroyed in the process. And I'm like, okay. And then somebody reached out to me and goes, "Hey, by the way, I got the pencils separate from the inks. You might have been duped." And I had to go back to Spencer and be like, "Dude, what's happening here?" And then he had to go back to the artist. And if you know Spencer, that all of this is excruciating.
Nice.
And eventually we got back to, oh yeah, half of the pages they sent to the inker and he erased the pencils. The other half they sent him a digital file and then he inked the blue lines. So so there's half the issue is there and half the issue is not there. And it's just, it's a dumpster fire of provenance and what is what and where it is. It's a
and that's
it almost makes you want to go buy Speedball.
There's so many talented people out there who are forging original good content. I mean, like recreations are one thing. Like, as long as it's fully disclosed, that's a recreation, because some of these are spot on. Like if you didn't know about the age of the paper or, what you were looking at, you could easily be duped.
Yeah.
It's always fun too when you have some of those issues, particularly in like 70s, 80s, and I'm sure before and after, where there's like 10 inkers on the book where they like pass the pages around. And it's like good luck trying to figure out like who inked which page sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Maybe what we need to do is come up with a small rubber stamp and provide them for everyone who is a artist rep. And when they're selling something that is inks over blue line, that they have this standard little rubber stamp that they put on the back of it, so that at least there's something. Because unless that ever happens, there'll never be any. You're all left to your own your own knowledge, or being able to go back to the rep like you had to, Bob, to go back to Spencer to try to get the skinny on what exactly happened there. Because it happens a lot. When a rep. One rep is repping the penciler and another rep is repping the inker. That stuff, you just don't know what's going to happen, and you're going to get those not sold together, or even the opportunity to ever put those two pieces together.
I mean, it works. It works for DC and Marvel. But what happens when you collect Zombie Tramp?
Then you're just awesome.
Then you're just you've already plateaued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll sign up for be a calf notary, Bill. One of those.
Yeah.
A calf notary. Oh my God, that's fantastic. $2 a stamp.
Exactly.
One thing that's interesting too, I think sometimes that pops up, is a lot of times now you have modern artists who do digital pencils and then they ink their own pages. Like personally, that doesn't bother me whatsoever, and I think there's an enormous number of artists who do it because you're ultimately getting something traditional. It's all by the same artist, but I know some people care about that. Like I know Jeff Shaw. Like half his stuff, he pencils and inks all his stuff. Half of it is digital pencils, and the other half is traditional blue line pencils. So you have to like stare at the thing to try and figure out if the blue lines are actual pencil or if it's printed on the paper.
Just try to erase one of them.
No, James.
Dip it in water.
Every time James has spoken in the last 5 minutes, I've been scared.
Jay Fabach does the same thing. He inks over his own blue lines. So,
and I'm totally cool with inking over your own work. If it's if you do your pencils digitally, you print it out, and you ink over. I'm totally cool with that. I have no problem with that. I just see it as I think it's a disclosure thing.
Well, then you got Stegman, who used to do rough digital pencils, finish it up in pencil, all the fine details, and then ink over that. So you've got 3 layers on a lot of his work.
Yeah, whatever it's going to take these days. I mean, the art that's out there is what people are able to accomplish just blows my mind.
Speaking of art.
Yes. Great topic, Ed. And another one that could carry on for a long time. But one of my favorite artists, Sean Phillips, does that exact same thing. He does all his pencils digitally, transfers it to board, and then he inks it. And he's done that for quite some time. And at first I thought it was a little odd, but after seeing it, year in and year out, I've become very fine with it as well.
Who's that artist, Bill?
Sean Phillips.
Oh, okay.
Mark from Splash Page
Yep.
represents them.
I was just talking to him about some of those Friend of the Devil pages. Yep, I totally.
Yeah, I love his work.
Oh, it's great.
All right, well, Bob, you get to show us some artwork here.
Oh, okay, I'll try to make it quick.
Oh, wrong one.
Oh, that's awesome.
I do. It's fantastic. All right, so this is from the collection of Rob Hughes, who has cornered the market on all great Spectre things. Those of us that love Spectre, we bow down. Anyway, this is one of the Jim Aparo pieces from the Adventure 431 to 440, which was, if you know the story behind why Spectre does what he does in this series, it's fantastic. It was basically a workaround on the Comic Arts Code or whatever it was, where they said you couldn't kill a person on screen or on the paper. So what Spectre did, he actually transformed them into something else and then dispatched them. And this is one of the great stories with the Swami, who is cheating people out of money. Spectre turns him into a glass. Not spoiler alert. Spectre kills him, but he turns him into a glass person and then tips him over, and he falls down and shatters. It did one where he turned the guy into a piece of wood and then he put him through a circular saw. There was a bunch of other fantastic dispatches. Anyway, this splash page is brilliant. The adventure run that these guys did, and Aparo in particular, they're just brilliant. They're so good to look at. They're impossible to find, but Rob has definitely got in early and picked up some of the best stuff.
It's definitely a beauty there. And this one is from Cheeky Joe.
So this one, right? So I brought this up. Number one, it's fantastic because it's martial law. Martial law was a story that Epic Comics put out in 1988. It wasn't The Boys, but it was definitely like a hard-boiled storyline about the evolution of superheroes and the guy who's hired to not kill them but to investigate crimes. Definitely boys type feel to it, but Kevin O'Neill, who also did the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, just kills it in this. So I bring this one up. Number one, most of my comic collecting was done in the late 80s, 85 to 90. So I missed out on all the Drek that James collects. But what I did though is I used to read this one, which is really quite racy for a 13-year-old. But there were two auction results in Heritage in the September auction, which were insane. So there was a splash page and a tremendous splash page that went for 15 grand. And there was a cover from one of the spinoff series that went for 50 grand. And I think there's a real reappreciation of this. I don't think it's just nostalgia, and guys and women that are looking at this stuff. I think there's a real sort of look back on this and showing and deciding that this is actually really good art. There's a few guys that used to collect martial law before sort of the recent uptick in prices. And some of them got some really great stuff. I remember being outbid on I think it was Sotheby's in Paris was having a European collection. And I couldn't do the conversion to euros fast enough while I was in a cab on my way to work to figure out what the price was going to be. And I missed it. But I encourage those of you who like sort of dystopian stuff and really like some of this, I don't want to say anti-government, but certainly anti-authoritarianism and fascism. These books are tremendous, and the art is awesome. So
this is gonna kind of make me sound like the Neanderthal that I am, but I look at it and I kind of get this nostalgic feeling for everything I used to watch on Cartoon Network. You know, all those late night Adult Swim shows.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
it's
it's
just
got
my
that feel.
initial
Yeah.
impression. Yeah.
So Kevin O'Neill's, it was all done in it was all painted. I mean, marker and someone else who knows more about it than I do will probably chime in and say exactly what the medium was, but it's all full color, and it's every one of the interior pages are just awesome. This is one of the better covers, but they're to get 50 grand on this
Wow.
5 years ago was insane. So. But I guess we're all in a Lobo world now, where 100 and what was the Lobo price? I forgot.
200,000.
Shut
Yeah,
up! Really?
200.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
There was a Lobo piece that somebody tried to sell on, I think it was Calf, like maybe 4 years ago, and it was like the guy wanted $3 grand, and I think it sold for like 80 at one of the auctions in the last year, and it was a great. I felt like
I'll
a
just-
bastard because I didn't get it.
Yeah. The guy who has a Lobo piece is over the moon. Man, he loves it, and it's worth every single dollar.
That he does.
You know,
Very true.
No. So there you go. Martial law. If you haven't ever read it, it is something.
I have not. So now you've got me intrigued. I'm going to have to go and read it.
or I'll
Yeah.
wait for the cartoon. No.
Oh, there'll be no.
Maybe on HBO. They made a Spawn cartoon.
There you go. All right. Well, our third and final topic, Rob, you get to take us on this one.
All right. So, I mean, I think this fits really into a lot of what we've already been talking about. I think we've already touched on it a little bit. I was just going to talk briefly. Don't have a ton to talk about, but wanted to talk about kind of where NFTs are right now in the collecting sort of consciousness. I saw somebody earlier in chat asked what an NFT is. So I'll go, I think most of us know, but I'll go over it super, super quick. So it stands for non-fungible token. It's basically creating a digital asset on the blockchain, kind of a unique identifier to it. If you're familiar with the blockchain, it uses a distributed ledger system to decentralize the asset, and so that you don't have one centralized party like really controlling where the asset's at, so you can trade it and use that as like a trust network essentially. But so basically it's a digital asset. Think about like downloadable content, almost like in a video game, I think is a really good comparison, except you can trade it outside of the video game. But
There will be quizzes on this.
What's that, James?
There will be quizzes later.
Yes, I drafted up a quiz. It'll be multiple choice, and there's always going to be a answer E, none of the above. So it always makes multiple choice quizzes that much better. With NFTs, kind of, I saw a lot of people in the comments talking about certain artists releasing NFTs. So I'd be really curious to know more about that. I'm not going to attest to being and all be all expert on any of this stuff. I kind of stay up to date on the crypto space, on the NFT space a little bit, both for my job and for just because I'm interested in it. But the generally the position that I know Marvel and DC have taken ever since around the kind of the April timeframe, and seems to be continuing into current day. But again, if somebody in chat knows better, or somebody on the call here knows better, my understanding is that DC and Marvel are still not allowing artists to make NFTs. I think they're still trying to assess exactly where they want to be in that space, and what they want to allow artists, like how to participate in that revenue stream, or if at all. One thing I saw really interesting in an article was that one thing that I think I wanted to bring up that I think has been an interesting development is Marvel actually released their first official NFT back in June or so. On this, it's an app called Vivi. And they've done digital statues and they've done digital comic books now. The comic book started like a couple months ago. Now the platforms feels it's a little bit of an odd platform. You can put money in, but you can't get money out of the app. So that's kind of a red flag to me, like at first blush. But it's interesting to see that Marvel partner with this, and they've released like a dozen comic books or so. They're like really random digital comic books, like Avengers #8, first appearance of Kang, New Mutants '98, first appearance of Deadpool, Marvel Comics #1. Like, it's just like a random assortment of comics. There's no like rhyme or reason to it. But I did see an article that said that Marvel is investigating ways to use that app to generate revenue for creators. And so that is, it's interesting to me in terms of like, is that the direction they're going to go maybe for art at some point? Because I think it's somewhat inevitable that digital art goes the NFT route. But anyways, so I just thought that was really, it's interesting to kind of see where the direction that the kind of digital space is going for art, and curious if others maybe know a little bit more than I do in terms of where they see the direction of artists minting NFTs is going, or other people's perspectives as well,
I think,
in terms of the market.
I think a lot of the genesis, and we chatted about it, Rob, for the topic, is kind of think about it, Bill, and the other people watching. Was it like 6 months ago that you had Felix and Jason on? Because the word NFT kind of popped in, and people were kind of freaking out about it, and they were kind of explaining it. And that was like 6 months ago. So it was more, not so much, like discussion NFTs, definitely guys jump on that, but just kind of think of the consciousness over the past 6 months and the evolution over the past 6 months, and how for a lot of people it's starting to become established, and for others, there's still a resistance to it in just a 6 month window. So, I mean, when we have this conversation review at 6 months from now, right? I mean, what is that going to look like? It's gone so fast.
I think it kind of died on the vine almost 6 months ago when Felix was going to have a huge NFT drop, and then it just, both from an environmental impact perspective and just a general kind of the protection. I think the main arguments against it right now are what's the environmental impact, and then what is the ability for the artist to actually protect their art. I don't want to get too deep into those because I think there's lots of valid points on both sides, and it can get kind of heated. But anyways, I'll let other people speak, but I think it's really interesting.
All right, well, I know,
I'm actually really ignorant when it comes to NFTs. I just feel that with the new way that artists are producing all digitally, NFTs seem like to be the next evolution of how they can market their work. Digital proofs are one thing, like we talked about earlier. It's funny that we got into that whole same topic. But I think that from an artist perspective, especially artists who own their work, NFTs, when they become more adopted globally, if they do, will be, I feel that that'll be the avenue that people start pursuing more. Like, I don't know how you display an NFT. And for
Digital
me,
frame.
like being pardon?
A digital frame.
It's funny you mention that.
That seemed like the too obvious of a choice.
So Ed, I actually know the guy who's launching the NFT museum in New York. Which,
what you're saying is you can get us free tickets?
No, but what I'm
Digital
saying,
tickets.
what I'm saying is that they plan on having this guy. His name's Todd Morley. He used to work at Guggenheim years ago, but he is trying to create a museum on 57th Street that is going to have a gallery that will show NFTs on the wall. Right now, the merits of that.
Can I just do a virtual tour? I mean, it's
what's the point?
There are virtual tours out there,
and just do a walk around, and then what's the? I don't get it, but at the same time, it's a thing, Listen, the reality is I used to go to my local comic book store, and I used to go buy floppies. I don't anymore. Maybe it's because I live in a Manhattan apartment and I don't have space. If I was in Ohio, I'd probably have 7 acres like Bill does. But
a mini golf course,
and mini golf courses to throw around like they're like it's rice on a wedding. But what I don't have is space, and so I stopped buying floppies. I don't buy floppies anymore. If I get a floppy in the mail, I'll give it to a kid on the street and go, here, here's a nice
Like,
Plastic Man
what is
comic
this?
book, and and I'm not a creep.
On my iPad.
So
Come here, little boy. Would you like a comic book? Like that doesn't
like
seem
I'm gonna get
I have it in my
arrested.
iPad.
The kid's probably going to say, no, give me an NFT.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
there you
And
go.
Bob, you're not looking at like all that white space above your head, like that roof. Like there's plenty of you can do hanging shelves.
Yeah, yeah. There's. I have a wife.
Oh yeah, never
So that
mind.
is his bedroom.
Not interested in me putting.
Sorry.
There's plenty that way, but
You got a ceiling, man.
yeah, no, it's
You've seen Dino's room, right?
So I can tell you that I know that Jason has he and Felix tried to pursue the NFT as art sales option, and the publishers did put the kibosh on that, and I think that's still where that's at now. I think there's still negotiations that are going on there, but I do know that that Jason has started, or is in the process of starting, issuing NFTs with your original art purchases, because that really is the direction. It's like Ed, when you were talking about earlier, I want to be able to have the provenance established with a traditional piece of art. Well, that's the direction many hobbies are going in, including ours. In that, when if you can, an NFT can only be verified by the original artist. So reps are the ones who are most likely that will be able to sell and to attach an NFT to your original art purchase. But once that happens, then it's the same thing as if it's the digital piece. You're supposed to transfer it on the blockchain if you're ever to sell it, and the NFT can still have the contract where the artist can get a percentage of the sales. So that's happening now. I mean, I had somebody email me recently, not even a week ago, about a purchase they were making with Jason, and an NFT was being created as part of that original art purchase to go along with that. So that's this is really the beginning of that happening, and that is the direction I'd say most collectibles, tangible collectibles, are going to go, is that there'll be this digital provenance established with the artwork that is publicly accessible to most people. And it won't happen on artwork that's say from Jack Kirby yet, but at some point in time, I've said this before, I can't see how a Heritage or a Comic Link ends up not having someone who can authenticate an NFT a Fantastic Four Kirby piece one day, because at some point the buyers of tomorrow are going to expect the ability to be able to track the purchase history of a piece, to validate it. And 50, 60 years from now, that's going to become the standard. So, it's happening now, and the reps are the ones who can actually do it. But I think that where that's going to go in the next 20 or 30 years will be, or even 10 years, 5 years from now, is going to be very interesting. So, because a lot of art, and it makes me wonder, what does CAF have to evolve to include the NFT, whatever, the code, so that you can link out and then actually see that? Will I even want to add that? But I think the answer ends up being yes, because at some point, people who are selling art, their buyers are going to want to be able to, if there's an NFT on it, be able to see that information. So yeah, the future is definitely going to be interesting, and it's starting today,
And
especially with Jason.
Bill, with Jason stuff, is he doing Marvel and DC? Because I thought he had to stop doing it for the.
Well, that
Marvel
was
and DC
with
stuff.
selling, right? That was this. What Jason's doing is creating the NFT blockchain record as just part of, as if
Just
it's
part of the. Gotcha.
It's like, right, just it's
Couldn't
like
you-
it's a digital
couldn't you-
receipt that's tied to.
Couldn't
that
you still
artwork.
theoretically sell the NFT on its own though?
I don't think so, because it's not. No, I don't believe you can. I mean, I think it's contractually, when the buyer's buying it, they know that they now it has to be sold with it. It can't be separated.
Okay.
But that's,
So I brought up the whole floppy thing, because this is where it's going to go. There'll be a point in time, and I hate to say, I sound like Harry Seldon, right? And with psychohistory, which I wish they had killed that term, but we're going to get to a point where there's no more floppies. Like bookstores are already gonzo. There's going to be a point where print media is, when they talk about the environmental impact of an NFT, they're going to talk about the environmental impact of books. And there'll be a point in time when no one wants to have a paper carbon-based, record of this stuff. And it's going to be unethical to be a person who's working with paper. I don't know. I see this actually being where this goes. And NFTs is going to be where it's at. If Marvel's selling the first appearance of Deadpool, I think they're underselling it. It's a terrible idea. This is going to be where the money is eventually.
Yeah, I think they're testing the waters right now with the NFT comics on the VV app. Because I think that's ultimately every comic's gonna be an NFT, because it makes sense from like a collectible perspective. If you want to, like, I don't have any, or I don't buy any floppies anymore either. I use Marvel Unlimited and other apps to read pretty much everything. And if you want to bridge that market between the collectible, like you want to have a collectible digital comic, it's like, well, just make them all NFTs. You have like a limited print run, you have like a unlimited print run, so people can still buy them and read them, and it seems like a supernatural fit.
We'll be dust before this is a problem.
I'm going to jump in. My two thoughts on this, just to jump in real quick, from, I guess, not in the finance world or not dealing with NFTs all the time. First is, I think the NFTs transition the hobby more to an investment hobby. And I have a personal, challenge with that, and that's just me. Because, buy what you love, I put it on the wall, everything along those lines. And I know as the NFTs become more prevalent, then the hobby, will transition to more investment, and that requires a little bit more work on my end, or how I actually view the hobby to begin with. And the second thing, and somebody mentioned this when they first started talking about NFTs, and it kind of got me thinking, how I view my art. I view it on CAF. Majority of the time, like how many times I pull up my portfolio, and I have pieces on the wall that I look at. So it was kind of a little bit of leap of logic, but I view most of my art digitally as is already. If I go browse my galleries, I don't pull up my portfolios that often. I browse on CAF. So, part of me got to thinking, is that much of a leap of logic or a leap of practice for me to start looking at digital stuff as well? So.
James, I've got a favorites gallery that I run through probably every week or two, and I add to it of things that I like on CAF, and then I'll peruse it. Like I'm taking a tour of the best of CAF, in my virtual NFT, experience. Bill, if you can get an Oculus app, I'll walk through it. People have put artwork inside of Minecraft, and then they walk around Minecraft and look at their art, which just sounds hilarious because my kids would love that. But the leap of faith there is not far, to say that could be the thing. Bill, I think you're going to be virtual soon enough.
Well, no, I want 3D dueling dealers. We got to make that happen.
I just want to see what these off-camera art pieces that Bill has that he never shows anyone. Like to be able to walk around that room and see.
Yeah, I actually think that we should have an entire episode of Bill just taking us around his room.
MTV Cribs at the Billigan House.
That's right. We should do that. maybe one day. Well, there,
Bill Cox Cribs.
One of those virtual cons tried to do something like that. It was one of the West Coast ones. I don't remember which one it was, where you could. They made it like you were walking into an exhibitor hall and looking at a booth, and I forget what technology they were using. It wasn't Oculus, so it wasn't put on. But they were trying to do it through the browser. So it was kind of neat, so yeah, you're right. That experience is probably going to be something that we all take for granted in a few years. I mean, Mike, we have 3 Oculus headsets here, that my kids have, and I've used them. I love them. I've not used them to look at art or anything yet, though. But sure, I could see doing that without question.
Yeah, you get a premium level where Neil Adams tells you that you stole that from you.
I think that from the financial side, James, at least the way I look at it, I mean, I could always be wrong. This is just my thoughts on it, but I think it's kind of like the internet bubble to some extent, where right now you're seeing all of like the early movers in the space, and so you're going to see really high inflated prices on it. But once it's the status quo, like everybody's not going to be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on this stuff. It's gonna filter out to be a very similar market to what we see now. It's not going to make everything appreciate exponentially, but I think there'll be volatility and like in a transition period, which could make things difficult. But I think at the end of the day, once it's established, it's the financial thing's not going to be as severe as it looks at the moment.
And when
right now it's still kind of a novelty.
Cover yourself in art. You just can't cover yourself in NFTs.
That's true, James. I know. That's your favorite thing. So,
Is it really?
No.
Is that your thing, James? You into?
It is, but you have to subscribe to it.
I'm not in the market for a fan.
Only fans, right? Exactly.
I'm not in the market for a fan. Thank you.
Well, I'm on your page, Bob.
Oh boy, but I know we're going to be. I've avoided a couple NFT conversations in the past, but I know it's something that we're going to be talking more and more about. So it's very unavoidable. So I think that probably every 5 or 6 months we should kind of see where we're at, because it's going to be changing rather quickly. I'm sure 2022 is going to be very interesting as far as how NFTs are impacting our hobby and others. Oh, yep. See, even Scott said you're promoting your OnlyFans again, James.
I like what Dino said about the MTV Cribs equivalent of your wall there, Bill.
Oh, there. I missed that. See, yeah, there you go. Like MTV Cribs. Yeah, there you go. Like Dino can talk. I mean, come on. Dino's got the coolest crib of all. So, yeah, for those who've seen that episode.
Yeah.
Oh boy! All right, so let's see. Ed, you get to finish us off here though with your 2 art picks. So why don't we kind of load these up here? Thank you, Rob. Another good topic.
So this is a page from the J. Lee run on Inhumans, the Paul Jenkins limited series from I don't know how many years ago. But I had an opportunity to buy this, and it's one of those pages that I talked about where I didn't pull the trigger because I didn't feel I had a few $100s to spend on the art. And this page, like, it hits all my buttons. Like, I'm a dog person. Like, it's got the little thing doll. Like, it's lockjaw. Like, it's like I don't know how to like describe it. It did it all for me. Like, I love Jay's inks on it. It's just a fun page for me, and it's in one of my favorites galleries that I have saved on CAF, and I look at it every once in a while with deep regret that I did not purchase it, but I'm glad that whoever did purchase it has it scanned and up for me to look at whenever I want.
Randy and Laura Martin, right? I think.
Yeah.
Hey, Ed, can I ask you a question?
No.
Okay.
Yes, you may.
Is it because it's a dog thing that you like it, or is it just the emotional moment that's coming off the page?
It's the emotional moment that's coming off the page. The fact that he's got like a little like doll of the Thing, it reminds me of like the X-Men where like Ileana would have when she was still a baby would have like her little Bamf doll.
Yeah, the little Nightcrawler, sure.
Yeah,
it's adorable.
That just like it's very reminiscent of that for me. Like just like the emotion that is conveyed in the dog's face, like with the ink, and it's just there's so much white space that the minimalistic use of the ink, even for Jay, is it's just a powerful piece to me. And like I said, I love dogs, so like that's what initially brought me to it. And then I read the series and I saw that it was for sale. And I was like, oh man, that's such a great, the colored piece in the book is fantastic, but seeing the original inks like this is just, it sort of leaves me like humbled to look at it, just because it just fills me with a lot of emotion.
What's cool is that a lot of pages require the word balloon for the writing to come out. You don't need a word balloon on this thing at all. It's got punch. I love it. Sorry you don't own it, but it's
me too.
But it's brilliant. No, great selection.
Thank you. I get such a thrill out of looking at this page. It just, it just makes me so happy to see it all every time I take a look.
Nice pick. And your second one.
So I'm a diehard Amazing Spider-Man fan, and everybody really like don't get me wrong, like John Romita Jr.'s like Hobgoblin is some of the best, but Amazing Spider-Man 289, where they did the reveal, and spoiler, that Ned Leeds was the Hobgoblin, and that is one of my favorite issues of the Amazing Spider-Man that I read as a kid. And I probably read it 50, 60 times. I probably own at least 8 copies of it in various conditions, just because every time I see a nice copy, I pick another one up. It's such an underrated book, and there's just it's a great storyline, and this is just a good reveal where I think it was the Foreigner that had trapped Ned, and he was captured this way, and it's such an emotional page. You can see the frustration in the face, you can see the shock. It's almost a traditional Hobgoblin positioning on a glider sort of stance. I really love this page by Tom Morgan, and the inks are by Jim Fern. So I've never seen this in real life. It's one of those things that I came across not too long ago when I was looking through random art for Amazing Spider-Man, and it's good stuff.
And it's in Aaron Sultan's collection.
And if Aaron wants to ever part with that, hit me up.
It is a beauty.
And we should take this opportunity to mention that if you're enjoying the show, you should hit that like button.
Yeah, where's Nick when we need him, right?
You tune in for other episodes, and the Bob Brown and Ed show.
There was that show. It was a movie that Mel Gibson was in, and then Conspiracy Theory. Mm-hmm. And whenever he's programmed to, whenever he sees a copy of Catcher in the Rye, he buys it. Right? Is that how you feel?
That and Amazing Spider-Man 294, those two comics, I probably own more copies of than any one person really should if they can own a shop.
I mean, I think the biggest goal coming out of this chat is the community should help Bob complete My Little Pony #1.
Oh,
we gotta find those pages, man.
Bob needs MLP.
I'm waiting for Andy to come back to me on if he's got some.
And then on that same topic, let's see if we can get the My Little Pony pages your most viewed on your calf. That way, when you look at your stats,
so I took a bunch of them. I took a bunch of them down from calf because I didn't want to be the My Little Pony guy. My kids are yeah, you're a pro.
No judgment here,
I think that ship is sailed, Bob.
Yeah. But no, I listen. I've got some great stuff. I just didn't want to be the My Little Pony guy.
Who needs Punisher #1 when you got My Little Pony #1?
Seriously.
What if you had My Little Punisher #1?
What's funny is that I had so Andy Price did these 3 big paintings, and I bought them for I don't know on eBay for $5,000 or so. He sold each one of them, and I bought each one. And they were enormous, and I got them framed, and I ended up doing a deal for those. It was a bundle deal with some lock and key stuff, and with the guy that was the former president of IDW, who then, as I handed him all the stuff, he goes, "Oh, by the way, we're making a TV show." Like, oh, you son of a bitch. So anyway, eventually he actually put them back to auction. So I bought them again. And this time I think I paid like 12 grand or something. And then some guy came back to me like as they were still sitting inside of Comic Link's warehouse. And he's like, "Hey, I love those so much. Can I buy them from you?" I'm like, "Sure. Well, how about a couple $1,000 more than what I paid for them? And I'll send them directly to your house." And he's like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome." And so they're sitting in this guy's house in Cincinnati and in his daughter's bedroom. And I'm so happy they're there because my kids don't care. But, it was, they traveled, It was actually kind of funny. I ended up giving Andy a bunch of money because I felt bad that I had made so much cash off of it, off of trading his art, that I ended up giving him money
For me too.
It was a very sad. Sad. It was a very early version of Ethereum, where I gave the artist royalty on art that he had nothing to do with selling or buying it.
And Bob brings the topic full circle this evening.
Yeah.
Doesn't Barry Windsor Smith have like a contract or something set up?
He wrote it on the back of his art, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Like a 2-paragraph disclaimer on the back of his art.
I think so.
If you sell it, you have to give me 10%.
Interesting. I own Barry Windsor Smith art, and I should go look at that.
That's a flex.
Careful about selling it.
Your contract lawyer is calling you on the other line.
No, sorry. I had muted myself. No, I wanted to show off my little pony artwork that I have that I bought for my girls that aren't on their walls, but
Our
probably
viewers
should be.
Let's see it.
Yeah, exactly. Here,
That's
see.
awesome.
Here, I'll full screen it for everybody too. There you go, look at that. It's a beauty.
There you go. That's some serious Rainbow Dash and some Applejack.
See, you know your ponies.
Oh yeah, I don't deny it.
And right there.
I like
Now,
that
Dan,
page a lot. Like oh man, that's nice. It's not my thing, but I do appreciate it.
I don't know that one. Is that Tony Fleece?
I'm not even sure because I think my wife bought this one, but I do think she got it from Tony. Well, wait a minute. Well, it's signed AMF exclamation point.
Yep, that's Tony Fleece.
Yeah.
Is that Tony Fleece? Okay, well then there you go.
Anthony Fleece.
Ah.
Yeah, I was so happy
Yeah,
he did so well with that Stray Dogs thing. I mean, what a great series. So he was doing those mashups between it was like pulp. He was doing like Star Wars and pulp covers from like the 40s, and he was selling them as prints years ago. And it's for him to go through and do all those variants that he did for the horror comics, and then do those for Stray Dogs #1 and 2 and well, I guess all of them. It was really seeing how he has progressed as an artist and a concept guy, and then pushing it into what ended up being a tremendous product, and capitalizing on it. I mean, every one of those sold for. I think Felix said that one of his big buyers, because I missed out on the cover for #1, and I talked to Felix about it afterwards, and he said that somebody else who was a big player also was going for it and missed it on the drop.
I think our buddy Fred got it in the chat.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
We'll see if he says.
Well, I told Bill I wouldn't swear, so congratulations, Fred.
At least I think so. I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, that was and such a great little story. I'm so glad I got picked up, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Tony's a tremendous individual.
Agreed. Well, I did not know that those were Tony's pieces, to be honest, because I wasn't the one that bought it. My wife was. She was. I don't even remember what con it was. It might have been San Diego or something. But she was walking around and found them, and just I think we actually have 3 or 4 more other pieces too. I'll have to go find those. I only framed those 2.
Oh, hey, can I just say something to Rob real quick?
What
So
up?
Rob, so when I talk to people about how much more fun comics are these days, I only bring up Cosmic Ghost Rider. I'm like, imagine, right? And I run through the scenario, right? He gets the power cosmic, and he gets it's Frank Castle with the power cosmic, and then he gets Mephisto to make him into a Ghost Rider guy. And when I talk about how comics aren't what you might remember from the 90s or the 80s, I bring up Cosmic Ghost Rider as the number one, like, this is going to blow your mind. And I'm so happy that you've, made that your thing.
Do you talk about the Juggerduck too? The Juggernaut, Howard the Duck? That's part of that story.
It's in Cosmic Ghost Rider. Howard the Duck gets the Jim of Sidorak and his Juggerduck.
Shut up.
Yeah,
I now have to go and read Cosmic Ghost Rider.
It's amazing. Like there's I mean,
I didn't know that.
Rob's got that page too.
I've got the first appearance of Juggerduck, but no, like I 100% agree. Like it's one of the stories that got me back into comics. So like I used to collect comics when I was younger. It was all Iron Man, and then it was Thor: God of Thunder, Thanos Wins, and Cosmic Ghost Rider pulled me back in. And like what you're saying about Cosmic Ghost Rider is like a huge part of it. I'm like, this is just so much fun to read. I can go read this comic anytime I want, and I just have a good time reading it. But yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Throw the Jeff Shaw art on top of it, and it's just it's a cherry on top of a.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous book.
Yeah, it's so good. And that whole Thanos Wins series was just killer.
Yeah. Not as fun, but
no,
much more serious, but very, very good.
Well, we've passed the 2-hour mark, and we've learned a lot about our propensity for appreciation of the pony artwork, which is really special. I didn't know that it was shared so broadly across the art collecting spectrum as I do now. And Juggerduck, I don't know anything about, but now I'm going to have to read Cosmic Ghost Rider to figure that out. I can't even picture it.
I hate myself for saying that, but just to bring fish in there, your ponies had a lot of good thigh gap.
Yeah,
I'm serious. So and Bill, really pull out the old martial laws.
Well, I will. I actually wrote that one down too. I was curious because I didn't know anything about it. I'd seen that artwork before because I've checked out Joseph's collection many times, but I wasn't familiar with that at all. And I read the description. I was like, wow, that does sound pretty cool. That what he had written on that piece of art. So I will. But all right, guys. Well, another successful episode. What's up, James? You look like you have a question.
The last thing is just for if you want to join or be a part of it. I think for the next one we've got a lot of slots available for people to come and just have topics. One of the challenges when I'm talking to people is, well, what's my new topic? What's my new topic? I mean, but the original art isn't, amazingly complex. We've gone over a few topics that have already been discussed just from a new collector spotlight. So if there was a topic that has already been discussed that you've got different ideas on that you want to bring up to the table, we've got a list of all the topics. And one of the cool things, these guys will know, is all the alumni for the show. We've created, some conversational groups and everything, and it's become a little bit of a camaraderie that we chat amongst ourselves a lot. So anyone watching on record, hit up Bill, hit up myself, and we'd love for you to join us.
Absolutely. And hey, I have to say one thing too, because I get asked about this all the time. So I want to show one thing here on CAF is I did finally sort of index the collector chat so you know what the topics were. So I know you probably have never seen this page before, but it's underneath design. And if you go to the YouTube videos page, it's where I've pretty much indexed every conversation, every interview I've ever done. But just using the drop menu here, pick the first one in it, Comic Art Collector Conversations, and hit go. And you can easily find any of the shows. And I did my best to put the topics in for all of them. So for those of you who want to kind of just skim around and see what topics we've covered in the past, at least I've done it here. It's not perfect, but it's there. So, and on top of this, look, there is Juggerduck. So I had to throw that one out there. Thank you very much.
That's
For
awesome.
putting that in the chat, Rob. I love it. That's amazing.
Wow.
And he dies 2 panels later. Just kidding.
Oh,
Or-
wow.
Spoilers.
Oh man, you just ruined it.
I don't know.
Oh man. All right, but yes, that's very true. Anybody, please hit James and I up if you've got a topic you'd like to discuss. It's a lot of fun. We're very informal here, but yeah, we always like to bring in new blood into the chat, and there's a lot more things we could be talking about. So hit us up through CAF. You've got our email addresses, I'm sure, as well. Bill@comicartfans.com. Really easy for me. And Bob, Rob, Ed, thank you. I guess you're going to have your own show at some point. Somebody was saying they wanted to see you have your own show. So we might be able to help you out with that if you guys ever want to do that. But again, thank you so much. And James, as always, thank you for helping me organize these things. If we wouldn't be able to have a show as regularly if it wasn't for all the work that you do. So I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, everybody. Good night. See you again soon.